Welcome to the Hope Natural Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Erin Ellis, your host. On this show, we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Patrick Sullivan Jr. is the co-founder and CEO of Jigsaw Health, a family-owned supplement business that has sold $100 million in supplements since 2015. As a former leg cramp sufferer, Patrick brings a personal perspective to this discussion and is passionate about helping others suffering from this achieve a cramp-free, restful night's sleep. I'm super excited that he's here. He's actually a fellow Arizonian. Their Jigsaw is in Scottsdale, and I'm very excited to chat all things cramps, magnesium, sleep with you, Patrick. So welcome to the show.
Dr. Erin, thank you so much for having me. Kudos on having a great show. I've become a big fan. I binge listened to 3 episodes this morning. Dr. Terry, Dr. Wolfson, and Amanda, the sleep expert. And all of the episodes were great. I would encourage your whole audience to go back and listen to them. And I know based on what we're going to talk about today, there's something that all 3 of them could have mentioned that they didn't. So I'm excited to get to talk about it with you.
Awesome. Well, before we dive into that, I really want to know more about how you really got into this. Jigsaw, the family-owned business, and, promoting magnesium. And you say you have 99 problems, and magnesium should not be one, right?
Yeah, I got 99 problems, and magnesium solved like 98 of them.
Oh, got it. Yes. And it should also not be a problem.
That's right. I got into this business candidly kicking and screaming. I was in my late 20s. My dad he and I started Jigsaw Health together, and he had suffered for 30 years with various chronic health conditions that he found answers, solutions, aka pieces to his puzzle, thus the name Jigsaw Health. And those pieces to his puzzle, he wanted to help educate and provide solutions to the rest of America. We started Jigsaw Health in 2005. So Jigsaw's about to celebrate its 20th birthday.
I love that. Congrats.
Thank you. Yes. I actually, I joke about kicking and screaming. I saw it as a great opportunity to work with my dad and learn from him. And over the last 20 years, I really have grown so much of a passion and an interest in health. Really, my dad has been the formulator throughout the years, but after 20 years, you end up picking up a couple of things along the way. My job has mostly been as CEO, the operations, the customer service, which we call our customer happiness team. And basically just working with our team to deliver these great products to so many people around America. So yeah, as you mentioned, it seems like a big number. Since 2015, in the last 9 years, we've sold over $100 million in supplements. But what that doesn't say is how few supplements we sold in the first 10 years, because we really got a lot of things about our marketing and operations wrong in those first 10 years. So I know that's not what this podcast is about, all the business lessons I've learned in 20 years. But boy, if we ever do a follow-up, we could definitely have some fun on that one. I think we're going to talk about leg cramps. That's what we're here for. Yeah.
So I want to know if you can explain the difference between muscle cramps caused by potassium deficiency and those caused by magnesium deficiency, and how can someone who has leg cramps identify which one they're suffering from? Leg cramps are huge. A lot of people get them.
Big time. And that's because so many people are magnesium deficient. And we're going to come back to that. I, growing up, played a ton of soccer. And mostly grew up in the Dallas-Fort Worth area before moving to Scottsdale, Arizona. And it's very humid, very hot, and it's like tournaments all weekend, every weekend for, what seemed like 8, 9, 10 years growing up. And so many times I would be in bed at night with these terrible leg cramps. And I would kind of sneak into my parents' room and be like, Mom, my legs hurt so bad. Can I have the heating pad? And number one, I don't know why we just didn't keep the heating pad in my room the whole time, because then I wouldn't have had to wake them up. But heating pad was like the trick, the only thing. And, 15, 20 minutes of that heat would help. But had my parents known then what we have learned since, we could have really solved the problem. And I think the title of this episode, if it's not this, maybe I'll suggest it. How to, the surprising cause of nighttime leg cramps and why bananas probably aren't helping. The reason is because bananas very high in potassium, but there's actually two types of muscle cramps. And I learned this from another Scottsdale doctor, Dr. Decker Weiss, naturopathic cardiologist. He taught me this trick that there's actually two types of leg cramps. So if you're in the midst of playing an activity, running around, swimming, playing pickleball, whatever it is that you love to do, and you begin to cramp up during the activity, that's the sign of a potential potassium deficiency. If you begin to cramp up after the activity, or like those painful Charlie horses at night, that's actually a sign of a potential magnesium deficiency. And the reason bananas aren't going to fix the Charlie cramps is that bananas don't really have much magnesium. By the way, neither do many sports drinks. You look at like a bottle of Gatorade, it's 22 grams of sugar, and I think it's like 20 milligrams of potassium. It rounds down to 0% of the recommended daily intake of potassium, and there's 0 milligrams of magnesium. So sugar water ain't the answer either.
Yeah, so bananas, we know, are rich in potassium. Besides taking a supplement, which you guys have one of the best magnesium supplements out there. I love it, the Magnesium SRT. What can someone get magnesium from their food? If they don't have magnesium around, obviously people think they can reach for a banana. So what can they reach for knowing those two tips, like after the fact, like, ooh, this is a magnesium, what can I get to eat?
I will give you a little PDF, a little infographic that we put together called My 5 Favorite Ways to Get Magnesium. And you can put that in the show notes. Number one, actually, my favorite way is supplements. So I get 700 milligrams a day from what you mentioned, Jigsaw Mag SRT, the sustained release magnesium, and I use the nighttime magnesium as well, Jigsaw Mag Soothe, for 200 milligrams. Now, one of the questions that obviously comes up is like, how much magnesium should I be getting per day? The FDA's recommended daily intake is 420 milligrams for adults. Now, doctors Mildred Seelig and Andrea Rosenoff wrote in a book called The Magnesium Factor that formula, that recommendation is kind of outdated. And they recommend a formula based upon body weight. So I weigh about 200 pounds, and they say that I should be getting 5 milligrams per pound of body weight. So 200 times 5, they recommend that for optimal intake, I should be getting about 1,000 milligrams per day of magnesium. That's why I start number one with the 700 milligrams of Mag SRT and Mag Soothe, because I know I'm covering that base. Now, for food, my second favorite way to get it would be pumpkin seeds, almonds, and cashews. Those are the 3 highest nuts, number one, that I like the most. And number two, that also have the most magnesium. They pack the best magnesium per ounce of any other nuts. And number 3, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, with that, if you based it off that other research with getting a gram per weight or 5 grams per weight, you're going to be eating a lot of pumpkin seeds. Right?
Yes. In particular, and just to clarify, it's 5 milligrams.
5 milligrams per pound. So, anyways, if you get the 1,000, it's easy to take the supplement to get some of it to supplement, and then you can have a handful of pumpkin seeds or almonds or whatever nut.
Right. We sent a bag of sprouted organic almonds into the lab. This was, probably 6-7 years ago. We did this as a bit of an experiment and measured the amount of magnesium, and it had, I believe, 71 milligrams per ounce of magnesium. So it would turn out to reach like 1,000, or just to reach 400 milligrams, you had to eat 6 ounces of almonds, which is essentially like 1,000 calories of almonds per day. It's a lot, folks. And I love almonds. Don't get me wrong. By the way, make sure if you're getting almonds, sprouted organic is the best way to go. If you get roasted, good chance they're roasted in seed oils. So
Yeah.
That's a whole nother ball of wax we can get
Yep.
into maybe at a different time. So
Yeah.
yeah, the top 5 ways of getting magnesium. One other great food, and then I'll leave the rest to so people to find out. Is just chocolate, dark
Mm-hmm.
chocolate, like organic dark chocolate with 70% cacao or more. I believe it is 50 milligrams of magnesium per ounce of dark chocolate. So when I'm watching TV, chilling with my wife at night, like getting 2 squares of dark chocolate is like, okay, that's a good way to get some magnesium and
Yeah,
a
and
little
that's
healthy indulgence.
and that's okay to do when you're on your period, ladies, because we all crave the chocolate and sweets during our menstrual cycle, and it's actually going to help you with your period cramps. Is why we reach for it. I want to
But
back up and talk about, and this isn't in your question, so hopefully you can answer it, but there's so many different forms of magnesium, and I get questions all the time, like what type of magnesium? There's so many, it's overwhelming. Can you touch on the popular ones and what they're used for, and then like which one you want to look for, muscle cramps and even hydration?
yeah, that is a very common question, and unfortunately, it is confusing. And unfortunately,
Mm-hmm.
the most common would be like a magnesium oxide or a magnesium chloride.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the cheapest, least absorbable forms. I would highly recommend people stay away from those 2 forms. Instead,
Mm-hmm.
there's 3 forms that I really like. The first one is probably magnesium glycinate. It's what we use in Jigsaw Mag Soothe. I like it especially because it's magnesium bound to the amino acid glycine, and it helps to calm brain chatter. So
Mm-hmm.
it's especially helpful right before bed. I take it every single night. It's a very absorbable form. The body is like, oh, this is what I needed. As someone
Mm-hmm.
once said, it's like yoga in a bottle.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other great forms would be magnesium malate. This is magnesium bound to malic acid. It's a bit more of an energizing type of form. It's what we use in Jigsaw Mag SRT. The SRT stands for Sustained Release Technology, essentially a time release mechanism so you can take a high dosage of it and it breaks down slowly over time. And Dr. Decker, who I mentioned earlier, he was actually the principal investigator in a human clinical trial that we did a couple of years ago called the Scottsdale Magnesium Study, where we looked at the absorbability and the uptake over time and symptom relief of MAG SRT versus placebo in a double-blind placebo-controlled trial. And thankfully, we really kicked placebo's butt. So it was a really, really great
That's cool.
aspect of that. The third form this that has become more popular in the past maybe 10 years would be magnesium L-threonate. This is magnesium bound to threonic acid. It's especially healthy for the brain because there's studies from MIT showing that form gets past the blood-brain barrier better than, like, say, magnesium malate. I believe that's what they studied it against.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing is that magnesium malate still gets into the brain, but magnesium L-threonate gets in better. So
Mm-hmm.
Jigsaw, we carry magnesium L-threonate as Jigsaw Brain Boost. So
Mm.
yeah, those are the 3 forms, and I think if you use one or any of them, you're going to get wonderful benefits from magnesium.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that because and the other really common one you didn't touch on was magnesium citrate. That's another
Mm.
pretty popular one. And that's the one I like to use if you have maybe constipation, things like that, because it can stimulate bowel movements.
Yeah, magnesium bound to citric acid, I'm not generally a fan of, but you're right. In a pinch, when you need acute relief,
Mm-hmm.
certainly magnesium citrate can help. Usually, when conventional medical doctors are prepping for a colonoscopy, they will
Mm-hmm.
use a mag citrate or a mag chloride. Think milk of magnesia.
Yep.
That's magnesium chloride. And it's basically just using a side effect of magnesium, which is that it's hydrophilic, which is just a fancy word that means magnesium will draw water to it.
Water.
So if you're drawing water into the bowels, well, the bowels can't hold on to that, so they rapidly excrete
Mm-hmm.
that, and it can be uncomfortable, but certainly in a pinch, mag citrate can be used.
Okay. So, in your opinion, why are magnesium deficiencies so common today? And what are some of the most overlooked signs of this deficiency?
Susie Cohen is a pharmacist that wrote a book maybe 15 years ago now called Drug Muggers. And one of the things that she focused on in particular was here are a list of nutrients that are basically mugged from the body when you take these drugs. On jigsawhealth.com, printed with Susie's permission, we have 14 drugs that deplete magnesium. It's an excerpt from her book. And so the kind of drugs that deplete magnesium, I'll go through it quickly. Acid blockers like Tagamet or Nexium. Antacid like Maalox, Mylanta. Antibiotics, antiviral agents, blood pressure drugs, ACE inhibitors, still going, central nervous symptoms, CNS stimulants like Ritalin, cholesterol agents, corticosteroids. That's always a tough one for me to say. HRT, hormone replacement therapy, and oral contraceptives. The list keeps going on, but the point is the body is utilizing magnesium when it encounters these. And it's robbing, essentially, a lot of our magnesium is actually stored inside of our bones. So it's coming out of our bones. Our body's having to keep the balance, the electrolyte balance inside of the body. And it's essentially being attacked by these pharmaceuticals. So it ends up utilizing more and more magnesium. In fact, one of the key aspects to the formula we talked about earlier, that 5 milligrams per pound of body weight, there's another medical researcher named Morley Robbins. He created something called the root cause protocol, maybe about 10, 12 years ago. You can find it just by searching root cause protocol. But he added his own sort of corollary, I guess that's the proper way to say that, corollary to the 5 milligrams. And he said, when under stress, like, you have to increase your magnesium even more. So one of the things he found with his clients doing health consults and hair tissue mineral analysis and blood markers and all the stuff he was looking at is he started to ask the question, okay, so you started to have these bad symptoms. What happened right before you had those symptoms? And one of the things most commonly cited was like some kind of major crisis, either with a business, get loss of a job or a divorce or a relationship or a sudden death of a family member. Some sort of major insult happened that triggered the body's need to create more energy, ATP. Well, ATP is actually Mg2 plus ATP. It's magnesium adenosine triphosphate. So when the body is responding to this crisis with more energy, if you're not also increasing your nutritional intake with magnesium, the well just starts to run dry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's such an important mineral. Now you mentioned that if we start taking, because most people, I mean, you brought up stress. I mean, that's a huge one. Everyone has stress. So we could just assume if you have stress, you're probably magnesium deficient. So you can start taking magnesium, and you mentioned that it can start working really like night one. So how does it play a role in like muscle function, our brain, even our sleep? Let's talk about how it really can help with that.
So magnesium is one of the 5 key electrolytes: magnesium, calcium, sodium, potassium, and chloride. And magnesium and calcium are kind of like 2 kids on a teeter-totter. So calcium and sodium are very easy to get from the diet. It's in just about everything. On the flip side, magnesium, which is balanced by calcium, and potassium, which balances sodium, magnesium and potassium are a lot more challenging to get from the diet. They're just not as prevalent. So when you are, and the other thing that happens is that calcium clenches, magnesium relaxes. And we need that pump back and forth, that peristaltic action. But when one kid is a little too big on the teeter-totter versus the other kid, you just end up fully clenched. So I was telling a friend of mine, a week or two ago, about magnesium. He was like, my gosh, my mom has like leg cramps all the time. I'm buying some of this. And it's kind of funny too, because it's like, this is a friend I've known for a couple of years, right? It's like that I work at Jigsaw Health, and it just takes people their own time to sort of catch up. But whenever they catch up, they catch up. So he
Right.
bought Jigsaw Soothe for his mom, and she texted him the very next morning and was like, "Oh my gosh, that was the best night of sleep I've had in a long time." It's because the teeter-totter is starting to get a little bit more balanced. Calcium isn't inside clenching the muscles because
Mm-hmm.
there's enough magnesium starting to enter the body to help relax it.
Mm-hmm. Love that. It is same, and then that's the same with the muscles, but also for calming, right? Leads to that,
Mhm.
so you can sleep better. What? How is it as specifically affect brain health?
Well, I mean, magnesium, I'll go to what Morley Robbins says, that magnesium is like the conductor of the orchestra. I joked earlier at the top of the show, I got 99 problems and magnesium solved like 98 of them. Well, excuse me. It's often cited that magnesium is involved in like over 300 biochemical reactions inside of the body. But that number, it turns out, is from the 1950s. It was from Dr. Burt Valley of Harvard Medical School, and it was a best guess based on 1950s knowledge. Morley Robbins, who I mentioned, the creator of the root cause protocol, through new research has discovered that it's involved in at least 3,751 biochemical reactions, including the brain. So magnesium is this conductor all over the orchestra of our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're not getting enough, the cello starts to play a little flat,
Yeah.
and the timpani is playing off beat, and who knows what the tuba guy is doing over there, right? So
Right.
it's mitochondrial dysfunction at the cellular level that
Yep.
starts to break down.
Yeah. What can you take too much magnesium?
Not really. So there's a very rare case of like kidney dysfunction, a kidney disease, where your body it won't clear it. But
Mm.
for everyone else, if you're taking magnesium orally, your body will tell you where the tolerance point is, because if you take too much all at once, it will excrete it. It'll make your stools loose. And another thing that we talked about, magnesium citrate. If you need, it's kind of like throwing a hand grenade down there. You don't necessarily want to do that. And we have found Mag SRT, the sustained release technology, Mag Soothe, helps really with regularity,
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't get kind of the yo-yo effect going back and forth between constipation and then hand grenade explosion.
Yeah. You might have already touched on this, but let's talk about more like this, our athletes, physically demanding sports, maybe someone that plays pickleball, which is super popular here in
Sure
Arizona.
is.
Like, how would athletes, or even people that, work out avidly in the gym, sports, teams, etc., benefit from maintaining this proper magnesium, potassium levels? Is it go back to the cramps, or is it more than that?
It really does go back to muscle function, the sodium potassium channel
Mm-hmm.
operating efficiently, and the magnesium and calcium channel operating efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I got to give a plug. You mentioned the word pickleball, which has
Mm-hmm.
become absolutely my favorite sport. Ashley and I started playing in Flagstaff in 2018, and we loved it so much that we actually started the Arizona Pro Pickleball League and
Really?
held matches at our indoor pickleball stadium, the Orchard at Jigsaw Health, and all of that process became a documentary that just got picked up by Amazon Prime Video like 6 weeks ago. So
No
we made
way.
a documentary called Breaking Pickleball. It's such a wonderful story. The documentarian that we hired, Cole Uphouse, did such a magical job. We were very inspired by the documentary, the docuseries Welcome to Wrexham. And so we did our own kind of small version of that, but we're delighted that Amazon picked it up. And if anybody's into documentaries, your audience that's kind of looking for something fun to watch, it's very family friendly. We bleeped out all of the curse words. Episode 4 was a little tough because the character we follow in episode 4 is a little rough. I feel like our sound guy was like, God, I really had to use the bleep machine a lot on this one, but it's very family friendly and very fun to watch.
Oh my gosh, that's funny.
Magnesium, potassium for athletes. A woman once asked me at a trade show, I think, gosh, I don't even remember, 6, 7, 8 years ago, can I become addicted to magnesium? And I had to think about it, and I was like, you know what? You already are. Magnesium, as I mentioned, is one of the 5 key electrolytes that you have to get from outside of your body.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't make magnesium. You have to give it magnesium as the source. So yes, every athlete and really every person, I think, will find the more magnesium, the better off they're dealing with their Charlie horses and those leg cramps. And for active athletes, they may need to focus a little bit more on potassium. Because, again, potassium is that if you're in the midst of the activity and you start to cramp up, that could be the sign of a potential potassium deficiency. One of the things that I've learned as a pickleballer, in fact, the reason that we created Jigsaw Pickleball Cocktail,
I was going to say,
powder.
You have a pickle. I was like, I'm pretty sure they have a pickle something.
We do. We do. And the reason we made that formula is because I, as a addicted pickleballer, started to play, 2 hours worth of pickleball, and I was finding myself start to cramp. And that's when I remembered what Dr. Weiss said about, cramping in the midst of the activity. Because I take plenty of magnesium. Trust me, we make these products so that we can take them. And I love taking Jigsaw magnesium. But I was starting to cramp up, and I was like, okay, we need to really create a formula that has more potassium. So we put 800 milligrams of potassium plus some sodium and magnesium into an electrolyte flavor. And 800 milligrams is about the equivalent of 2 bananas worth of potassium. But it tastes like orange tang because I don't like the taste of bananas. I never have. I don't know why. Growing up, I just never got into bananas, and I still to this day am not a fan.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I saw that's kind of a relatively newer product, correct?
Yes, we launched that in 2020, and it's actually in our top 5. And what is hilarious is there's a lot of, it seems like the registered dietitian community that has stumbled upon that product and really taken to it. And so I've seen people on Instagram taking it and like pouring it into a drink, and they're like, it says pickleball cocktail on it. I don't really play pickleball, but I like the flavor, and my dietitian says to take this, so I'm taking it. And it's like, yeah, okay. In fact, we decided we're going to change the name. It'll probably happen next year to potassium cocktail. So pickleball cocktail becomes potassium cocktail. So it's a little bit more in line with what people are now using it for. But if you play pickleball, you can still take it. Same exact formula as before.
That's an awesome story about the pickleball. I didn't know that. And that's where the pickleball cocktail came about.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Patrick.
Addicted is all get out.
I love talking magnesium and supplements and whatever the case may be and hearing your story, but we'll wrap it up here. We could probably go on all day, but I'll finish with one question that I ask all my guests. What would be your best or favorite health tip that you can share with the audience?
I love that you asked this question. I heard in the previous episodes that I listened to, both Amanda, who talked about sleep and had some great stuff, but didn't mention magnesium. I can't believe that.
Oh, yeah. What were those Amanda. 3 podcasts have in common that they didn't talk about magnesium?
Well, in episode 150, they didn't talk about magnesium. So Dr. Wolfson, the naturopathic cardiologist, Amanda, the sleep guru. I liked all of her lessons, but was surprised she didn't bring up magnesium. And then Dr. Terry, the hand doctor, which, by the way, I'm going to get, the grip strength. I'm getting one of those. I meant to get it before I got on this podcast, but I'm going to get it right after I get off the podcast because that sounded amazing. And like you said, I'm finding that I'm having trouble lifting heavier because my hands aren't holding on to the well enough. So I'm excited to do that. So shout out to Dr. Terry. So two of them mentioned my favorite thing, vitamin N, nature. I thought that was great. And Dr. Terry said something that I'm going to glom onto as well. You are the healer. Recently, I've been getting into Dr. Joe Dispenza meditations. And I feel like, wow, through meditation, I'm finally able to now start telling my body to get out of the fight or flight, that chronic stress, cortisol buildup that I didn't even realize I was doing. I was running the program. So I think my tip is really for the whole audience to really look into meditation, and in particular, highly recommend Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation.
Yeah, great place to start if you're new to meditation and just want to dabble into it. He's like the guru, just like you guys are the guru for magnesium. So thank you for being on the show, sharing all things magnesium, wisdom about Jigsaw Health. We'll make sure to have your website, jigsawhealth.com, linked to the show notes, and then shoot me over that PDF so we can include that in the show notes. But I really appreciate you taking the time and educating everyone on the importance of magnesium.
Thank you, Dr. Erin. Thanks for having me. Thank you for what you do. You have a great podcast. Your audience, your patients are very lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you all again next week. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment below. And if you haven't done so, please be sure to give us a rating on your favorite podcast platform. Join us weekly as we inspire you to be your best version. For more, follow me on Instagram at dr.erinellis. Until next week, you got this.